right here at I-77 northbound.
Trying to make your dollar stretch a little bit further.
Responsible reporting, community-focused, unique content.
It's so good to see you.
Y'all are having too much fun.
See the difference. Weekday mornings on WCNC Charlotte.
Working moms feeling the burden of the so-called mommy tax are often left asking, where's the money? The mommy tax is a concept that's been talked about for years, where mothers typically earn less than men or even women without children. Pew Research Center shows in 2022, women earned about 82 cents for every dollar earned by men, pointing to parenthood as one of the factors getting women back, setting them back financially.
The responsibility of managing kids largely falls, as we all know, to the mothers.
In a recent survey of 10,000 American mothers by the parenting online platform Motherly, it found in 2022, 18% of moms changed jobs or left the workforce. Of that number, 28% said they wanted to be home with their kids, but 15% decided to stay home due to a lack of childcare options. It's a position Carlene Haylett found herself in 2020.
I spent the first 11 years of my son's life trying to build this core of care that my son needed. And I joke and I say, a strong wind and the entire thing came crumbling down.
After working in the technology sector for 25 years, Haylett says she had enough of the pitfalls of the mommy tax, including the impediment to professional growth and financial ramifications. That's where Enrich HQ, a platform she founded in 2020, comes in.
I needed a solution. Every parent I know needed a solution, and decided to found this company that brings together programs for kids.
Enrich HQ takes out a lot of the work for parents when looking for activities for school-age children.
Our platform brings together an exclusive ecosystem of activity partners and does all of the work for vetting these companies for things like teacher certifications, childcare, safety regulation compliance, things that take the onus off of the parents.
The company helps provide content for home schools and activities for kids to do after school if they can stay home alone. That way, working moms don't have to worry about finding enriching materials on their own.
We focus on life skills, how to budget, how to invest, how to rent an apartment, things like entrepreneurship, working, problem solving, working as a team, program management.
Haylett says many of their partners offer virtual enrichment programs at 50 to 75% off, saving parents money in addition to time. They also have a concierge service to help parents facilitate a better work-life balance. We have information on how to access these programs on our website, WCNC.com. Vanessa?
After that brutal attack in a Las Vegas courtroom, officials providing a highly anticipated update on Judge Mary Kay Holthus.
Judge Holthus was injured and received medical attention. She remained sore and stiff, but thankful it was not more severe.
Judge Holthus releasing a statement thanking well-wishers, writing, "I am extremely grateful to those who took brave action during the attack." The shocking incident captured on courtroom cameras playing out as the seasoned judge was sentencing 30-year-old Deobra Redden to prison for attempted battery. The defendant, who has a history of violent assaults, jumping over the bench, tackling her to the ground, and sending a court-martial to the hospital. The terrifying episode calling into question security procedures in our nation's courts.
How common is it to have attacks or threats like this in a courtroom?
Attacks like this, these emotional, impromptu acts of violence occur probably daily in courtrooms across the country.
Like this incident in Mississippi, a suspect caught on video throwing things at the judge. But Las Vegas officials say they've never seen anything like this.
There's plenty of instances where somebody is, becomes rowdy in the courtroom. And this is the first one I've seen where somebody supermaned over the judicial bench.
Redden faces multiple new felony charges of battery, including battery against a protected person, meaning the judge and her court staff. According to court records, he refused to appear in court Thursday to face those new charges. Clark County's district attorney says the court is now reviewing its security protocols.
Redden's reaction
happened so quickly. I don't know if anything could have been done to prevent him from what he did.
Wake up to the news that matters most with meteorologist and traffic reporter Chris Mulcahy.
And we're all clear. We're keeping you smarter, safer, and on time.
Start your day the Mulcahy way. See the difference. 4:30 to 7 on WCNC Charlotte.
Time now to connect the dots when we make the news make sense. Buying a home almost always preferred to renting over the last years and decades, really. But this morning, several factors have more people changing course.
For a lot of people right now, renting just makes sense. Let's connect the dots. For years, people thought of renting as almost throwing away money because you got no real return on your investment. Experts now say buying a home has far more dead costs. Things like the thousands you pay a real estate agent and the interest you pay on bank loans all add up. And the housing market isn't that strong. Folks trying to sell their home are now turning to renting to make money. And rental prices here in Charlotte are going down. All those apartments you see going up all over the city are a renter's best friend because supply is finally starting to catch up with demand. And that is connecting the dots.
Welcome back. The city of Charlotte is growing at a rapid pace. With that growth, though, local farmers, they are worried their farms could be put at risk.
Farming advocates say the city is on track to lose.
We're seeing some of those winds gusts get up to about that 50-mile-per-hour range. And even though we're seeing the main batch of rain push through, it does not mean that we're out of the woods yet. It's areas down to the south and southeast that haven't had that much rain yet. And I'm really talking about Anson County, Chesterfield County, over to Richmond County especially, but Union, Lancaster, and Stanley County, we can include you as well. The rain is actively picking in, but it's going to pick up some of that energy that's been left over. But I want to show you behind the front. You can see the difference with winds out of the south and southwest. Once that front passes us, look at the winds still heading into the evening. We're still having wind gusts get up to about 36 to 40 to 45 miles per hour. Some of these even represent they could get as high as 50 miles per hour once again up in the mountains and across the area. It's a little bit different right here in the foothills, but that means it's going to be breezy outside of the wind advisory that goes until 10 p.m. And we saw most of our wind damage realistically before that line even moved through. So I just checked Duke Energy. There's over 30,000 without power in Mecklenburg County alone. There's multiple power outages. We'll continue to see more trees fall, more tree limbs likely take out power lines. So the story is not over. So even though the rain should be over by about 6 o'clock for most of the area, the winds will still be very strong at that point. The water will come down. But in the meantime, through this afternoon, you still have a chance for flash flooding, strong winds, an isolated tornado. Everything is going right now, so please stay weather aware. We'll keep you updated online and on air. Stay safe.
Thank you, Chris. And we will continue to follow these conditions, the power outages, storm damage all afternoon. So remember, you can stay in the know by downloading our WCNC Charlotte mobile app.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll be back at 2:30 here on air with a live check on the forecast. Stay safe, everyone. Well, new at 5:30 tonight, CATS is operating without 22 of its light rail vehicles. That's half of its fleet.
And this comes after NCDOT directed CATS to pull the vehicles from service after a light rail operator reported on a defect on one of its wheels. WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre looks at the impact riders could feel from this.
CAT says although half of its fleet is out of commission, they still have enough trains to keep the current Blue Line schedule with no disruptions.
NCDOT said, we don't know exactly why that's happening, and therefore we want you to take all of those trains out of service.
22 older light rail trains now out of service for maintenance. This after a defect to the face of the wheel called a flat spot was reported late last month. The car was repaired, but the same issue happened again.
While flat spots are not uncommon, it's not usual to see a new flat spot develop after just 5 days.
CAT's interim CEO, Brent Cagle, says rail maintenance found the wheel had excessive play. It was wobbly when it spun. NCDOT directed CATs to pull those trains from service and investigate the root of the problem.
Until we know exactly why there's some wobbling or excessive play in this one wheel, until we understand the reason why, we're going to pull all of the older ones out of service just to be sure, just to be safe.
In the meantime, Cagle says service will continue as scheduled. The agency still has 23 vehicles and says it only needs 20 for daily operations. CAT says they do not believe this issue is related to the wheel bearing problems that caused a derailment in 2022. City, county, and transportation leaders say safety is not an issue here.
From what I can tell, this is absolutely the highest level of care and concern and protection, given the warning signs that presented themselves that could be undertaken right now.
So this is operationally inconvenient for CATs, but if anything, the last thing you need to worry about is safety. We're very vigilant.
The Metropolitan Transportation Commission did request for NCDOT to come to its next meeting to answer any questions, make sure that they understand the concerns and steps being taken to fix the issue. It should take about 2 to 3 months for all the cars to be back in operation. In West Charlotte, Jesse Pierre, WCNC Charlotte.
Today, North and South Carolina workers are asking where's the money as their pay stays stagnant.
Yeah, that's right. More than 20 states are increasing their minimum wage this year, but the Carolinas are not. Instead, staying at the federal minimum wage of $7.25.
WCNC Charlotte's Kaylin Hagwood joining us now after looking into this concern. And Kaylin, what have you learned?
Well, if you take a look at this map, the states that are highlighted in yellow increased their minimum wages to various amounts this year. The highest increase being out in Washington state, where their minimum wage increased to more than $16 an hour. Now, much of the South, though, not choosing to make that increase this year. North and South Carolina, as you mentioned, remain at $7.25 an hour, which is the lowest you can offer most employees based on federal law. Now, that number hasn't changed since 2009, and some workers and analysts say
this is Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here with meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. Active afternoon. There is still a lot going on right now across the area. We've got a couple tornado warnings just outside of our viewing area, but obviously online we know we got a lot of viewers. This one's up near the Virginia-North Carolina border. So this is going to include parts of Henry, Patrick, and Rockingham counties near Martinsville up in Virginia. But across the Charlotte area, we've got several severe thunderstorm warnings. And Chris, some of these are what we call considerable, or they are sometimes have a tornado tag. And I know it's a little bit hard because people just see a severe thunderstorm warning, but what is the difference between those warnings?
So the big difference here is you're seeing areas of the orange, and the orange just means that anywhere along that line you could have a spin-up tornado. And legitimately, it's about a 2-minute period. I think that's what we saw in Catawba County. And I know the National Weather Service still needs to go out there and survey the damage, but the way that the signature was, we'll show it to you. But all the counties that you're seeing in orange, those ones are going to have that tornado tag. But whenever you're talking about considerable, that's going to be wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. And then the worst severe thunderstorm warning that they have, and we have not seen one of those, is destructive. And that's the one that's going to reach your phones. You're not going to get an automatic alert from WEA on your phone unless it's destructive. But right now we've really seen a range from just your basic severe thunderstorm warning to that considerable damage. That means wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. But it's really outside of all these warnings, and I'm not discounting these. We've seen likely a tornado. We're seeing a tornado warning off towards the north. Yeah. But the widespread wind damage is still bringing down trees, still bringing down branches. And I was just looking at our outage map, Brad, and looking at this, I can see at least bubbles of 21,000, 6,000, and just doing some quick math here, I can easily count over 50,000 power outages across our viewing area, or at least surrounding area.
Yeah, so for North Carolina total, then now the total is 63,853. And in Mecklenburg County, you're right, about 2,500. Union County is about 3,500. Rowan County, about 7,000. And Catawba County, about 3,700. So we're seeing a lot of outages out there. If we can go to Weather One, guys, I want to show you something interesting because, Chris, one area I'm watching, I want you to see these little lines coming up through York and parts of Chester County. There's some of those little squiggles that we had earlier. Look at that, right around Chester. Definitely some rotation there. Little ball of
wow,
wind.
that's significant.
And we'll have to keep an eye on that because that's heading towards Rock Hill and into areas there. Let's switch to the terminal data.
And a note, the fatality that was reported in Catawba County, that was not a warning storm. There was not even a severe thunderstorm warning attached. This line that Brad is actively looking at is a severe thunderstorm warning, but it's outlined in orange, meaning there could be an embedded tornado. There's so much going on right now that I think it's really tough to pick up these individual tornadoes. So anyone that lives in this line from Rock Hill, further off towards the east to Monroe, just note that you are going to see this line potentially spin up tornadoes, and you're really seeing some signatures here.
So, let's just go ahead, even though we're not under the tornado warning. If you are, like Chris just mentioned, in Lancaster County, eastern York, southern Mecklenburg, western Union County, I want you to go ahead and treat this like a tornado warning. Maybe not shelter in the closet or that location, but get to the middle of your house and just be ready to head to shelter, because the area between Richburg up towards Lansford and just south of Rock Hill, there's some hints of rotation in there. And if you look at the wind speeds in that area, you're looking at wind speeds just off the surface that are, 75, 80 miles per hour. So that being said, you're going to want to be in your shelter location regardless of whether there's a tornado warning or not. Remember, the severe thunderstorm warning by definition means a tornado can and often does form in and around a severe thunderstorm warning. So when you're under a severe thunderstorm warning, you should anticipate that there could be a tornado in any one of those, Chris.
And wind is wind. This is one of our favorite things that we say to you, because realistically, some of these could produce winds at 70 miles per hour. That's a weak EF0 tornado. Tornadoes get, of course, all the spotlight because the amount of damage that you've seen that they can do. But anything along this line is going to have that potential of bringing trees down, and trees are the leading cause of death for wind damage. Come down on people, coming on down people's houses. That could happen in an instant. And usually a spin-up tornado, QLCS, lasts only for a couple minutes. It's not on the ground too long. Now, they can last a lot longer, over 10 minutes and long, and that could have happened in Catawba County as well, but it's going to happen in a flash. And you're hearing the roaring wind also, so it's not like you're hearing a sudden difference. So things are hiding within this, often rain-wrapped as well. Luckily, it's daytime. It's the nighttime ones that are the scariest with this. But anyone along the line, again, naming out, so right along the line around Rock Hill, now especially moving the northern part of Lancaster County, you got to be watching us closely. We're going to let you know. We've been on here before that we've followed some rotation, and then later the tornado warning pops up. So we're letting you know in advance. We've already seen, sadly, an event that was outside of a warning pop up. Tremendous amount of damage. That was in Catawba County. That's the biggest story that's coming out of this. But there's also multiple roads that are closed for being underwater. We're seeing multiple closures because of downed trees, downed power lines. Thousands of people are out of power already. That's only going to grow, especially if you have some of these embedded tornadoes.
Yeah, and that's why I was feverishly typing there.
Very fast.
Very typing out some information to people that aren't watching the stream. But if you're in a severe thunderstorm warning today, I just want you to go ahead and treat it like it's a tornado warning. We want you to go ahead and get to the lowest level of your home, interior room, away from those outside walls and windows. Maybe not the helmet, maybe not hunker down for the hour, but just get towards the middle of the house. Chris brought up a very good point. One of the biggest concerns I always have is trees coming down on homes. And I think that's what we're going to see happen in that Catawba County fatality. It's likely going to be a tree that fell on a structure, or the structure collapsed on them. So you guys know your homes better than us. Obviously, if you have a big tree on one side of the house, or a whole bunch of trees on the east side, the north side, whatever side that is, get to the other side of the house. Get away from those trees. Get to the middle of the house. Put as many walls and roofs and ceilings and windows and everything between you and the outside to protect you from those branches and trees can fall down. You look at that, Chris, and that thing is spinning up right there.
Yeah, so this is the definition. When we say spin up, it's straight line winds, and then notice how it starts to notch and hook. That was right through Chester. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to get a lot of reports through Chester just for the winds in general as that move through. Sometimes it can be broad, and sometimes they can rejuvenate themselves too. They can go through a cycle, and
wow.
Yeah. So south of Rock Hill, it really looks like in between Rock Hill and Leslie.
Switch to the debris. It's so far from the other radar to tell. But yeah, that area right there between Rock Hill and Leslie, down on 21.
Highway
and
5.
Highway 5 there. Yeah, just east of Rock Hill. Might be a little spin up right there. And then you go up into like Cabarrus County and even Rowan County, really strong winds. So that whole leading edge of that line, the reason it's a little more interesting south is that's actually more instability down there. But we saw the northern part of this line produce a tornado already. So if you're watching this stream, if you're watching on our app, on WCNC.com, on Roku, wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Facebook, doesn't matter. If you know people in the path of this storm, it's a good idea. Grab your phone, text them, call them, say, hey, today's not a normal day. I know it's January. We're usually talking about winter weather. This is not a normal weather day. These are severe storms. They've had a history of producing damage and, unfortunately, fatalities. So we want you to seek shelter. Here's the good news. Once this leading edge moves through, we've seen the tornado watch canceled. Doesn't mean the wind and the flooding threat is going away completely, but at least the tornado risk and the really high-end winds, 70-mile-per-hour plus winds, would get out of the area as soon as that line moves through.
I'm happy to say that we've been also watching our traffic cameras. A lot of you are off the roads.
Yeah, it's really quiet out there.
Yeah, well, for one, school, they were canceled because with these winds, buses can topple over, especially if you take a turn too heavy. And
yeah, Chris, think about the time of day right now.
Yeah,
this is when kids would be coming home.
Exactly.
And so, great call by the school districts that did that, because being in the school is not the dangerous part. It's getting to and from the school. That's the scary part. Honestly, most schools are very structurally sound, and they have tornado drills. That's a good place to be. Where you don't want to be is in a car or a bus on the way to or from school, or in a carpool line or anything like that.
And the amount of roads, and we keep on bringing up wind. There's Wilkinson Boulevard, for example, is shut down right now just before you get to 485 because it's underwater. You're also looking at some damage. There's a lot of flooding going on from the amount of rain, because this isn't just a quick passing west to east system. Look at how much rain is being filtered in from the south. That's that strong, southerly, low-level jet pumping in moisture, where some areas are just seeing bands of rain. And Charlotte really hasn't even factored in Mecklenburg County how much rain probably has actually come from this system.
We're just now getting into that. I was actually starting to look at some of those totals. I know the western part of the county earlier was already over 1.5 inches. Actually, I'm going to quickly check as I'm talking here, Chris. We'll look at our FINS data, which is from Stormwater Services. They have a great a network of rain gauges. So, Chris, just looking at some of these, there's over 2 inches of rain in many areas of Charlotte already. And a lot of that fell within the last 2 hours or so.
Yeah, and I did this before. Before we had even a drop of rain today, we had 7.13 inches over the last 30 days. Jeez. Now, I know that's over 30 days, but now that we have the conditions that it's winter, runs off a lot easier, but then also you have saturated soils. You probably noticed that on January 6th, last time it rains, I know for my yard, we only had 1 inch of rain, but it almost looked like we had 3 inches of rain, just because about how much actually settled on the surface. So that's what we're seeing for a lot of these roads. Some of the sewers are still overwhelmed, where we went from a severe drought to just everything overexhausted. So we still very much have that flash flooding threat. I would say it is second to some of the wind damage that we're seeing, and it really looks like the tornado potential and just the severe weather has now moved up the rankings. Before it was like, hey, this is mainly a big wind event. You're seeing wind in many different ways, either mixing down from above along a line of thunderstorms or from a tornado. But as we mentioned, wind is wind. It's brought down already a number of trees, and we've only just begun, I think, to see some of these power outages.
Yeah, I think that the power outages will probably sneak them out. So, Chris, I just pulled up the max wind gust today. Look at the max.
Wow.
Charlotte gusted to 56 miles per hour today.
And that's recent, too.
Yeah, that was within the last, that's probably when that line came through. 44 in Concord. I mean, most of the winds are verifying, and that area along the foothills was the area we didn't think we'd see a ton of wind, and certainly that was the case. But as expected, we saw the winds kind of work their way down to the surface. I wanted to see the rainfall totals, because that was the other thing. Again, we don't have gauges everywhere on this map, but this will kind of give you a rough estimate. So Charlotte, 1.87 inches, 2.16 in Gastonia, and you see the higher amounts back in the foothills. Greer, 4.21 inches of rain.
Wow, that's substantial.
So yeah, we're just getting, and that 1.87 is probably underdoing it, because looking at some of the other gauges, most of these are well over 2 inches, 2.25 now. Near Uptown, I just got video from my wife. She was near Uptown Hospital there of Queens, and the Little Sugar Creek, and there's just water flowing all over the place. So we have seen a tremendous amount of rainfall in a very short period of time. So we'll go back to the leading edge of this. I haven't looked at the forward speed of some of these, but they were crazy high earlier. We saw a forward speed of one cell that was like 80 miles per hour.
Yeah, and the way that it pushed through, I actually do believe it. I was just like, this has to be a mistake.
Yeah. But the thing is, you got to remember, when you see forward speed like that, at the very minimum, you're going to get 80, maybe 80 mile per hour winds. Fast moving storms can produce that type of wind down to the surface. So I'm going to
it's almost like like pulling a dog on a leash. Eventually the dog has to catch up, and that's exactly kind of what we've been seeing. And the spot that we saw that initial 80 mile per hour forward speed was to the north, and Brad has some times here that you've seen it, but there's a separate piece of that storm where that tornado warning is off towards the north, and that is all because of that one piece that was moving much faster than the rest. So other times that you're expecting this leading line that Brad drew, this is also along this line, we'll have a chance for a spin-up tornado. Wind gusts over 60 miles per hour. Wouldn't be a surprise if it gets up to that 70 mark, just the way things are going. Also, it's driving into an area that hasn't seen a lot of rain. So we're seeing a lot more instability here compared to areas off towards the west. We've already seen a tornado or a potential tornado spin up in a much cooler environment. This is not like a system you typically see. Anything goes. It kind of breaks some of the typical rules that we see during the spring. It's not all temperature driven. There's just so much energy flowing into this. And you also have strong winds at 5,000 feet, a slight shift kind of out of the south, southwest, southwest at 10,000 feet. It's the classic shear setup that you have that twist the atmosphere that you will see some embedded tornadoes possibly.
Yeah, so we've been keeping a close eye on the power outages, and I know we've got some of the new outages coming in because these are likely going to increase as we go through, and you see how many have increased in our area. I'll refresh this real quick so we get a rough estimate.
96,000.
So that's jumped to what, 30,000 something?
I think it was 64, I think you said before.
So it's increasing quickly.
Wow.
And Mecklenburg County is becoming one of the main counties for outages.
52,000.
Wow, that's a big chunk. And then Rowan County seems to be another county where we're seeing a lot. And my guess is, Chris, this is tree branches and trees, because now we've got the combination of the wind and the rain starting to work over these tree roots.
And right in, because I'm looking here on Duke to really see the concentration. You're seeing...
That's in a wooded area. That's like a Myers Park, southern area, South
Quail
Park.
Hollow, Barclay Downs, you're looking at
South Park area.
13,000 without power. Yeah, it's...
big old trees in that part of the town. So yeah, those trees, those are the ones that tend to come down. And when they come down, they take a lot with them.
Yeah, and parts of just north of Matthews has 4,000 without power.
Yeah.
And so, I think you are seeing a lot of isolated areas that got the stronger winds along that initial front. So really what I'm saying here is from pretty much east of I-77, let's give it a rough line, there you still have a chance for the strongest winds of the day, and then even some secondary winds behind this. And we keep mentioning this. Winds, I think, are still going to be as high as 50 miles per hour. Wouldn't be surprised if we get back to that again overnight. Some of this wind might have just been crack 1, crack 2 that could have weakened some of these branches that'll still maybe come down a little bit later on with some of those weaker gusts. Even with the amount of rain that we have, it's loosening the root system where those shallow rooted trees, some of them only go down about a foot, and those could topple down later when all the rain is clear. And we're about to head into what's called stratiform precipitation behind this. It's much lighter, it's not as much, but it's still going to be blowing around. So with wind gusts still up to 40 miles per hour plus that rain, it's just awful conditions. And Matt, you were seeing a lot of images.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of flooding. That's the image I saw of the water coming down the stairs. Concord, we've got flooding. One of the interesting pictures I just got in my Twitter feed, this is from Jason. This is Harris Boulevard at I-77. Looks like some power lines either are snapped or the whole power pole is leaning over. So that wasn't a tree hitting the power lines. It looks like actually the power lines themselves got pushed over. So
that makes sense.
This all kind of is lining up with some of the power outages we're starting to see across the area.
And we can't show it you directly, but picture this is the power pole. My arm, it's about this angle, so it's almost like at about 30-degree angle from what it usually is. So 60 from the ground.
But looking at these, some of the video, the winds, these trees are really, I mean, it looks like 45, 50. There we go. Thank you, guys.
There it is.
Yeah, so at WXBrad, that's my Twitter handle. You can find me anywhere. Send us images because it does help us tell the story, but it also really reiterates how important it is to be seeking shelter and just stay off the roads. I think Chris mentioned that there's not a lot of people on the roads. We were watching the traffic cameras earlier, and it was nice. I saw one of 77, and for this time of day to see just 1 or 2 cars, that's what we want to see because there's a lot of standing water. There's a lot of branches, even not big trees, but just branches on the road. There's a lot of debris out there, clogged storm drains. It's not easy to get around the city right now.
There's a lot of daycares, businesses that are even closed today just because they don't want to be dealing with this. And if we could switch sources, I want to go to the Beaufort wind scale.
Yeah.
So this is just what you generally have. So a strong wind is classified as winds at 25 to 31 miles per hour. At that point, large branches are in motion. Umbrellas are difficult to use, and pretty much once you get to near gale, you're talking about a broken umbrella advisory. That's not a real thing, but just letting you know at this point, wear a raincoat with a hood because you're jeopardizing the umbrella's integrity once you get to about 32 plus.
It's not worth doing the umbrella. She's got one of those ones that is like windproof, you know?
You're gonna look like a cartoon, seriously. Yeah. Whole trees are in motion. So the image that Brad was looking at, when the whole trees are swaying, you're looking at near gale force winds closing in at 40 miles per hour. And then once you get to gale force, that's 39 to 46 miles per hour. That's where twigs and small branches really start to break. Your walking is impeded. And then a severe gale is about 47 to 54 miles per hour at that point. And we've been seeing a lot of those. Charlotte, including, got over that. I think it was 56 miles per hour is what we saw. That is going to be slight structural damage. We've been seeing that. We've also seen the power lines starting to come down and then larger branches start to break.
So, Chris, I'm going to make an executive decision here, but I think we might need to cut into TV as well.
Okay.
Because we've got something that looks like it's a developing tornado just on the west side of Waxhaw, south of Weddington. I don't like the looks of this on the radar because this thing has been in the last couple of frames. We've seen what looks like a tornado trying to spin up there in Ballantyne. So think of 521 as you're coming out of Mecklenburg County down into Indian land, going down towards there. If you've been down that area, heading towards areas going towards Lancaster, Hancock, west of Waxhaw. So let's zoom in on that area. There's definitely some rotation right there, and that might be the tornado warning. Let's see. I don't know if they popped it up. But guys, let's go ahead and if we could jump on TV as well to try to reach a broader audience. So if you're in this area, just a heads up, I do think we're going to have a developing tornado, possibly developing. Right, it might already be producing wind damage.
Here's a better look.
Yeah, that's
I know it's a CLT, but
that definitely. So what we're looking at right here. So what Chris and I are pointing out is the velocity data from the radar is telling us we have rotation right around Marvin, east of Ballantyne, heading towards Waxhaw. So we're up. So we're on TV right now. We were live streaming, Chris, and we wanted to break in because if you're in this part of Charlotte, we want to tell you there's not currently a tornado warning, but there is potentially a tornado developing, if not maybe already producing damage. The area we're talking about on the screen there, thank you for zooming in, there's Marvin. So that's the west side of the rotation. The east side of the rotation is a little bit further east. So go over a little bit where the darker blues are. That's where we have strong winds. So that wind there is coming up from the south, and we've got strong winds coming from the northwest. So that right there, that's our rotation. So within that area, we've probably got, 140, 150 mile per hour gate to gate. It's pretty broad, but it could spin up. So if you're in this area, if you're in southern Mecklenburg, western, northern Union County area, I want you to seek shelter right now. Get to the lowest level of your home, away from the outside walls and windows. This is possibly a developing tornado. Now, you're under a severe thunderstorm warning with the tornado tag. That means the potential for a tornado to form with little or no warning. Don't wait for the warning to officially come out. We're giving you a heads up right now because that to me looks like we've got some damage occurring.
And this could even impact areas heading towards Providence Road here, I would say within the next 15 minutes or so. We're talking about the southern part of the 485 loop, and it's heading right towards Ardrey-Kell Road. So if you live around Ardrey-Kell Road, Ballantyne neighborhood, you're really seeing this start to expand a lot more. Gusty winds regardless if this is a tornado or not.
Yeah, so Weddington, Marvin, Providence, southeastern Ballantyne area. Then next is going to be Indian Trail and then Matthews. So that's the area it's heading. So let's widen this out just a hair. we'll do a quick storm track on this, and I'll kind of show you the area it's moving. This is that area. So at the very least, we're going to have damaging winds, and probably at the worst, this is going to be a tornado. So either way, it bears you getting to the lowest level of your home. Now, if you're watching us or watching on a stream, go ahead and tell people, hey, take this storm very seriously. This is not an ordinary storm. You're already under a severe thunderstorm warning, but just because there's not a tornado warning doesn't mean we could not have tornado-like damage occurring there. I'll widen out so to give you kind of a broader view of the area we're looking at. We're now moving into the northwest corner of Lincoln County, but it's pretty much the the Union, Mecklenburg, Lancaster County line area that we're talking about.
And it's moving very quickly off towards the north-northeast, so it's going to be on your doorstep. We're already starting to close in on the 485 loop, but I'm going to use this as an example. We had one fatality that was in Claremont. It has been confirmed, but it did a very similar thing. You had that tight rotation. It was a long track, but then we saw multiple spin-ups for there. One fatality was there. A lot of damage. We're looking at a very similar situation there that is now just west of Weddington, just moved past Marvin. Again, if you live around the Ballantyne area, moving towards Providence neighborhood, Providence Road, 485, you're really seeing that intense rotation coming from this.
Yeah, so Chris, this area, what I'm showing is that surge from the south. That blue is very strong winds coming in from the south. That surge of wind, that typically is what will generate the tornado when you see a surge. So I know it says 0, but you're looking at the difference. Now, negative, people are like, what's a negative wind speed? That's just telling us the direction of the wind. Negative means it's towards the radar, which is up towards Mountain Island Lake, and positive numbers are away. So those plus or minuses are telling us the direction of the wind, not that it's a negative wind speed. It's really about the direction. And again, let's go through this loop a couple times. You see that big surge of wind. So at the very least, this is damaging winds. And just to show you, I mean, that's all the way to Waxhaw, down towards Lancaster. I mean, those winds are off the charts. Let's show you some of these winds.
Yeah, and this is also surging. So regardless of the tornado potential here, now all this is surging to the north-northeast at about 65 miles per hour. So Monroe, you're about to see the winds comparably almost double. Unionville, you're going to likely see this in the next 15. So I'm just only going to go back a couple of minutes. Notice it's 224. We've been following this rotation. That was 218. And it looks like we do have this one tornado tag.
Is there still a tornado tag on there?
Yeah, a tornado tag popped up.
Okay.
All right. So still for that rotation in general, what do we have for this newest update?
That is the tornado.
It is.
So that's the warning. That's kind of why we broke in, guys, to tell you about this. So let's go back to here to sweeping. And
here it is.
There it is. So you should see tornado warning currently in effect for parts of Mecklenburg, Cabarrus, and Union County. That's the cell. So that's why we didn't want to wait, because Chris and I kind of saw what was developing there. And sure enough, tornado warning currently.
Look at that.
It is really spun up. So around Weddington, go to the debris. Let's go to CC. I'm just curious. Okay, it's hard to tell, but we're getting some really good signatures, unfortunately. And what I mean by good is bad in this situation, because that is a significant couplet showing up in the Mecklenburg Union County line. So
it's moving fast, too.
Remember, seek shelter right now. So let's try to get ahead of it. And now remember, if you're watching us online or streaming, there's a little bit of a delay. The radar's not live. I hate to tell you this. The radar takes 1 minute to do a full rotation. So by the time we see it on the radar, that's already a minute old. If you're watching on satellite, cable, streaming, there's another couple minute delay, sometimes second delays. So we're going to give this a little girth here to kind of give you 3 or 4 minutes heads up, because there is a little bit of delay in when you're hearing my voice and when this is actually happening in real time.
Yeah, and since we're going through those scans, since this is jumping so quickly, it's showing Providence, but realistically, Pineville Matthews Road over to Independence.
Yeah, so Chris, I would track a couple miles ahead of it.
Okay, let's do that.
Because that's probably in reality where the actual couplet is.
Okay, so let's go right to here.
Yeah.
Let's change the speeds real quick.
What's the speed on that?
65 miles per hour currently.
Yeah, I had it 60 earlier, so the areas we're talking about, this is around Waverly, heading towards Providence Estate, Providence Plantation, eventually the west side of Matthews, downtown Matthews, by the way. heading towards the Sam's Club there and the Costco on 74 as you're going into areas around Matthews. This eventually will continue to push northeast. So Mint Hill, you're next in line. So think of Mint Hill, Old Sycamore community, and then heading towards Allen and eventually southern parts of Cabarrus County. So the reason the warning is so long is because it's moving so fast. And by the time 5 minutes goes by, this could be in Cabarrus County or really close to that. So make sure you're getting to the lowest level of your home, away from those outside walls and windows. And again, if you know anybody, you're watching this, maybe, hey, Brad, I don't live in that area. Do you know anybody? Can you give them a call? Can you text them and say, hey, heads up, this tornado warning's flying. It's heading your direction. I want you to seek shelter right now. So, Chris, this is moving into Matthews as we're speaking. It's over Providence Plantation. Basically right now, moving into Matthews, heading towards Crown Point, Mint Hill, and then Lakeland Hills, East Haven, Hickory Ridge, Hickory Grove, up there towards Reedy Creek, and then moving towards Rocky River and Harrisburg.
Yeah, this may sound extreme, but then pretty much from around the Independence Corridor for like the eastern side of Charlotte, you have to be advised that this is racing through, that it could be in 1 second and really out in 10 seconds the way things are going.
Yeah,
and
Chris, I would say a good idea is if you're on 485, anywhere on the southeast side of town, anywhere near 45 and 74 Independence, like you mentioned, those are the areas.
Yes.
That whole southeastern wedge of Mecklenburg County. Northern Union, though, it's kind of moving more into Mecklenburg than Union. And then Cabarrus, southwestern Cabarrus County. That's the area that we need to be seeking shelter from right now.
Yeah, and also we were mentioning on the backside of this too, that a tremendous amount of wind energy is now starting to expand through Union County. So this is still away from the radar, but this is showing, I would say, probably about 2,500 feet up in the atmosphere, about 80-mile-per-hour winds. Some of those are mixing down as well, so severe winds behind this. But again, if you're just joining us, we have a tornado warning that goes until 3 o'clock. The length of this goes all the way through Mecklenburg County, and it moves up to Cabarrus County. So the end of this would be Harrisburg, but how fast it's moving, about 60 to 65 miles per hour. Even areas like Harrisburg, it might be there before 3 o'clock. So again, moving through areas. The most recent couple of information that we had was right around Providence, but it's really anywhere from Matthews, crossing the Independence Corridor over to Iredell itself, Iredell Road, Margaret Wallace Road. Yeah. You're all going to be right in path of where we've been seeing this. And regardless, I think you're going to be seeing some gusty winds. And this might not be the last one, too, because there's a tremendous amount of energy that's all along this line. Look at all that blue that's coming up. So all that energy is racing through. So if you live in Union County, Stanley County, Anson County, you truly haven't seen the true magnitude of this. So there's a chance for this. And also all of our severe thunderstorm warnings at this point have an orange outline. That means they have a tornado tag. So any severe thunderstorm warning, treat it as a tornado warning or potential tornado, because we're seeing it right here where some of these have not been warned. The one that happened in Catawba, that of course is going to be surveyed later, was not warned initially, but the same thing goes here.
A little bit of good news I will say is that the tightness of the couplet is not there.
Yes.
But as Chris correctly pointed out, the straight line winds are still incredible. Pushing off to the north and east. Now, the other thing we'd like to do is tell you when it's an all clear. If you're in your shelter location, stay there right now. But if you're west of, let's say, 77, you can probably get out of your shelter location. But if you're ahead of this, and I would even say, even if you're not in the tornado warning, if you're anywhere in Cabarrus County, Western Stanley, Northern Union, and even now Rowan County, I would go ahead and start getting towards that shelter location, because the potential is we've got a tornado. If at the very least we've got straight line winds, at the worst it's a tornado pushing through. I'd like to see that, Chris. We're not seeing the couplet nearly as strong.
If this was indeed a tornado on the ground, it lifted. But that doesn't mean that it's done, because we saw before for the previous one could cycle back where it did actually turn into a tornado warning, but it just left our area. So that's why Brad mentioned Concord. You're right in line with this. And look at some of the winds that you're seeing still ahead of that other line as well.
Getting another alert.
Another alert. So again, tornado warning goes until 3 o'clock. It's eastern Mecklenburg County. It's also it's the eastern side of the 485 loop. I'm happy that a lot of people aren't out on the roads, but this one could sneak up on you. Even though We're not looking at it like it's actively coming down from right now. Still seeing some very strong winds, a lot of heavy rain. This would be rain wrapped if it was going to be that potential. Yeah. But this is good news. We are saying we jumped in on air because likely before we even had a tornado warning, that's when I think it was at its worst, and then it started to kind of come up as well. Please send us pictures, anything you may have, especially around the Providence neighborhood. If you're from Marvin, we saw also this expand through Weddington as well.
Yeah, Providence Plantation looks like went right through there, Audrey Kell area. Went through the northern side of Waxhaw, kind of missed Main at Waxhaw, but where it's moving now, I would say it's moving on basically Pineville Matthews Road, 51, Highway 51, heading towards downtown Mint Hill right now. That's the location. So Mint Hill, Lawyers Road area, Bain School Road, and then 485, kind of where it meets up with 51 there at 45, and then Rocky River High School. This is going to be in the path. Allen, and then areas heading up there towards Harrisburg. So this is going to head into Cabarrus County.
Yeah,
so kind of an early heads up. Rocky River, Harrisburg area, be on guard.
Newest sweep, still seeing some really intense winds. It's kind of coming back again. I'm still not as concerned as I once was.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like it's broadening out, but yeah, no, I really think it's like Idlewild.
Yeah.
That Idlewild to Margaretwald to Hoods, in between Mint Hill as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, Idlewild to Mint Hill, I think that's the main zone, because oftentimes tornado warning is going to be a little bit wider, and it's really pretty much right in the center of that tornado warning, which is usually the general path that I think is going to be the best potential that it could spin back up.
Yeah, so I would go ahead, stay in your shelter location right now. Yeah. There's definitely still right over Matthews and Mint Hill. Mint Hill, I would say that's where there's something going on there. It's actually starting to spin up a little bit stronger now. So we're getting a secondary. It might have cycled briefly. What happens is sometimes these tornadoes will occlude, we call it. It'll spin down, but a new one will form in the same rotation and start spinning up. So it looks like it's starting to wind back up. And so that's why you're going to see this warning stay up till 3 o'clock for southeastern Mecklenburg County, northern Union County, and southwestern Cabarrus County. So this is over Matthews, right there in downtown. Not too far from New City Church there, the Matthews campus, heading over towards Costco and Sam's Club. As you go on the east side of Matthews, first watch in that area, this is going to be traveling northeast towards Mint Hill. So as Chris mentioned, that Idlewild Mint Hill area, then Rocky River High School as it goes to the northeast. So that's the area we're talking about, essentially on 51, which runs from Pineville to Matthews, but actually goes all the way to Mint Hill and then to 485. So if you think about Highway 51 there, Pineville Matthews Road, that's where it's tracking. And the winds
Cross Creek Apartments is where you have the center of that, but it's always kind of a little behind how fast this is moving, which makes it extra dangerous as well.
Yeah, it's crossing 74 at least right now.
Yeah, I think it would be cross 74 right now, likely. So yeah, I might even just tag here Idlewild Road especially. Good chance it's going to be crossing Idlewild Road in between W.T. Harris Boulevard and Lawyers Road. You need to keep on guard. Lawyers Road especially. Idlewild Road, I would say that it's going to be coming there in the next minute or so.
Yeah, so Farmwood, Danbrook Park, Mint Hollow, Timber Ridge, Willgrove, Lakeland Hills, Manchester area, and then heading towards up towards 485 as you go on the east side of town. You know, Albemarle Road heading out towards the east, and then Harrisburg and Rocky River. So yeah, Chris, it's moving so quickly that by the time it shows up on the radar and by the time you hear us show you, it's already passed.
Yes.
Think about it. It's like taking a picture of highway traffic. By the time you look at that picture, that car is not in the same spot. It's gone. And that's what the radar does. Even on your phone, and this is why you should never use the radar on your phone as to be, it's not live. I think people mistakenly think that radar is live. It's a snapshot of where something was. It could have been seconds ago or minutes ago, but it's not where it is right now. The radar can only move so quickly.
So I want to put it in perspective. So this is 2:32 on this, just for the way things went. And notice 4 minutes later, 2 miles. Yeah. So it really just factoring that down, it's going about a half mile a minute.
Yeah.
So that is...
So it's over Mint Hill, Lakeland Hills area right now. Likely Timber Ridge. That's where I would think it is right now. So Cedar Brook, you're next. Cresswin, Allen, and then pushing off towards Rocky River High School, and then Harrisburg, Pioneer Mills area, and then up towards West Concord, and then into downtown Concord. So if you're anywhere near there, not even with if you're within 4 or 5 miles of those towns or those neighborhoods that I just mentioned, I want you to go ahead and seek shelter now. Stay in your secure, safe place. Now, if you're in Ballantyne, Indian Land, Fort Mill, Waxhaw, Weddington, you can get out of your safe spot, but stay in the middle of the house because the winds are still howling. But the tornado risk has passed you by. And yeah, Chris, to me, it looks like it's actually either cycled or spun back up as it crossed over Independence in 74.
Yeah, we're going to bring up our Speedway camera just to show you kind of the winds ahead. We've been keeping an eye on this. This is where Cirque du Soleil is, and we've been kind of concerned about the tent with some of these winds. Yeah. And likely the way that this current path is, I will say that we are back to the point that it is not as bad as one was, but you can see the shaking of some of these cameras. These are big cameras as well. It takes a lot to move them visibly that much, but I think it's easily, this is on top of Charlotte Motor Speedway. We've been clocking winds in the 40s. It would be much stronger if we do get this little couplet or just this energy to roll through there anyways.
So we would be looking the opposite direction that way. That's towards the drag strip and towards the campgrounds and towards Concord Mills. That's where they set that up. But over the track looking towards Harrisburg is likely the location of where the tornado is. It's going to pass east of the track for sure, and east of Concord Mills. But you're looking at more, every time I'm looking at the track, Rocky River High School is right in the path of this.
Luckily, there's no school.
Yes.
This is a good reason. This is why. Because the winds, the severe threat, the flooding, we've had the trifecta to the quadruple threat throughout the afternoon. And things have improved, we will say. We're always going to be straightforward. Whenever you really just see that little type, we'll go back in time. We'll really show you where it was a little bit more concerning. You see those flashes of yellow, but I think it's really right back here where you really see some of the strongest winds. When those blues pop up, it shows more of an intense wind that could be coupled in there.
Yeah, and Chris, as you mentioned, we were on before the warning, and that might have been when it was the strongest. Yeah, it was before the warning came out.
Yeah, it was right.
And that's why we broke in, because we were live streaming. You can always watch us. We're going to stream probably in most of these situations ahead of time. But as soon as we saw that it looked like it was spinning up, we're gonna break in and make sure you're safe, regardless of whether there's a warning or not, because we kind of know this area very well, and you could see the signature of that spinning up quickly.
This is when we talked about it.
Yeah.
This is about when we started going live, and then it was right through here. And this also shows how long that these type of events can go for. And look at how quickly it is. I have a 30-minute loop. So really it started southeast of Rock Hill. That was 30 minutes ago. And now we're looking at the center of this circulation, even though it is a lot broader, now to the 485 loop north of Mint Hill. So it's flying, again, moving about a half mile a minute. And so that would factor that we've been ranging a lot of these storms now pushing at 60 to 65 miles per hour. Some of these severe thunderstorm warnings have even had a tag moving at least the cell within it 80 miles per hour. And I like to describe it as like you're dragging a dog in a leash. Eventually the dog is going to catch up.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of these storms are doing because it's above our heads, about a mile up. We've been clocking speeds at 100 miles per hour. Not all that energy reached the surface, but at least that 50, 60 mile per hour mark is now. Let's bring up the power outages. How many people out of power now?
Yeah, let's go back, switch here, hit a refresh just to see.
Okay. 112,000 people without power in North Carolina.
Yeah.
When we started our stream, it was at 64,000, and Mecklenburg County was about 21,000. Now Mecklenburg County has over 59,000 people.
Yeah, almost 60,000 people without power in Mecklenburg County. And Mecklenburg County has a lot of outages, and the fact that it's increasing means we're still getting damage, likely trees coming down. And there's two ways you can track tornadoes. I mean, a lot of people obviously know we use radar, but you can track it by looking at the power outages and by traffic data. Sometimes you see that roads are blocked or covered up. That's because branches or trees have fallen on the road, and that slows down traffic. So traffic patterns are affected. When I'm looking at the south side of town, it's 240. It's not really rush hour, but Chris, that area 485, it's all slow through there, and 74.
Right where it crossed.
Right where we saw the rotation, and that gives us confirmation that something happened there. Either people slowed down, branches or debris got on the road, and now basically from Providence Estates, Francis J. Beatty Park there, and then you go north to Matthews through downtown Matthews through 74. As I mentioned, it was exactly where we were talking about, that area around Novant Health and downtown Matthews towards the Costco and Sam's Club. That area 74 and 51. There's major stoppage of traffic in that area.
Yeah, and right from Providence, if we can go to weather 2, I brought up our traffic data, and in general, I'll draw an arrow through.
I was going to say draw an arrow.
It was about this general path.
And so that lines up with the traffic data and the rotation.
Right where the orange is. So we saw that in Catawba County earlier, that there were down trees on 40. 70 is closed still. We have multiple roads that are closed, but then we're also going to shift over to Nick and Jane, that this is affecting the airports as well. Are they still in a ground stop?
Yes, they're still in the ground stoppage, according to the FAA. They issued that around 1 o'clock, and I keep refreshing FlightAware's website, and as of now, 351 delays at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. About 45 actually canceled flights. American Airlines seen the bulk of those delays at 188 delayed flights, and yeah.
That was going to be, I mean, that's been in effect now for a little while, so that can only just ripple into more delays and cancellations. Too, also hitting the refresh button on Duke Energy's power outage. Chris said 112,000 in our DMA out without power. We are now up to 118,000 customers without power. So a lot of folks are watching us on the stream. And just breaking down some of the notable counties here. Catawba County, we have 4,300 customers without power. That's about 6% of the area without power. Mecklenburg County now approaching 61,000 customers, about 12% of the county. A lot of customers without power. And I know you mentioned Union County. Let me just scroll down here.
Rowan was pretty high.
Rowan, that's right. Rowan County had a lot of customers, 8,700 customers. So 13% of the county there affected. And then Union County, almost 2,900 customers without power. So about 8%, a lot of folks without power. And of course, the crews won't be able to assess or fix the damage until, that weather permits them to get out to those areas.
And we are happy to say that the tornado warning has officially dropped off. As we mentioned, it looked like it lifted up, but that doesn't mean that we're over.
Yeah.
And even once this line moves through, we just saw how many power outages. It changed when I gave an update 2 minutes ago. And that's going to be the case, that hundreds of thousands will be without power. We're already over 100,000 in North Carolina. So even though the tornado warning is done for the eastern side of Mecklenburg County, you still have a ways to go. A lot of severe thunderstorm warnings with the tornado tag still exist and marching off towards the east.
Yeah, and Chris, we want to do what we said earlier before the warning was even issued. Any of these warnings on the east side of Charlotte now towards Albemarle, Concord, Union, Anson, Stanley, treat all the severe thunderstorm warnings today like tornado warnings because of the potential. Remember, oftentimes people don't take severe thunderstorm warnings as seriously as tornado warnings. By definition, a severe thunderstorm warning means it can produce a tornado with little or no warning. That's kind of the precursor. So oftentimes people will say, well, we didn't have a warning. But if you're under severe thunderstorm warning, technically that means there's a threat of tornadoes.
And some of these have had considerable tags. That means that winds could get up to 70 miles per hour. That would be a weak EF0 tornado. The event isn't done. Even behind this, where we're now starting to see more of that light to moderate rain, it's called stratiform precipitation. We're going to give the all clear for those pretty much west of I-77 as far as the severe threat goes.
Tornado risk is down.
But you're still going to have gusts up to about 45 plus that could bring down more down trees. That could also bring down more branches and more power outages. So it's a time to stay off the roads just if you can, because I mentioned this earlier that it's going to be fallen trees that lead to the most deaths during these wind events. So stay weather aware.
Especially when we get closer to sunset, which tonight is coming up here at about 5:29, I believe, is sunset tonight. So 5:30ish. New severe thunderstorm warning for our area. But so when it gets dark, you're not going to notice there's branches or even the roads flooded. So it becomes even more dangerous as we get towards nighttime. Let's quickly just highlight that new warning that just popped up. So that is a new warning till 4 o'clock for Union County. And again, does have a tornado tag in it as well. So all these lines, you see the orange warnings. Chris mentioned this several times. The reason they're orange is because we use that as a designation that these aren't normal severe thunderstorm warnings.
I'll let you see them better without the weather.
This means they have the potential to produce tornadoes. So again, Anywhere on that line, thank you. That's a great illustration. Anywhere from Albemarle to Monroe to Lancaster East, you need to take all of these warnings, treat them like tornado warnings. Now, would I tell you to grab the helmet and go in that closet or under? Maybe not, but maybe get towards the middle of the house, away from the windows, until the warning expires, Chris.
And these warnings right now, the newest data shows the biggest hazard, 60-mile-per-hour winds, also a chance for embedded tornado. Of course, trees down power lines will be some of the major issues. This is still moving northeast at 65 miles per hour. So that has been the general speed for a lot of this system, but it's not moving directly west to east. That's why this event has been lasting so long. We still have that flash flooding potential. There's so much going on here on the map that we really can't depict everything. So I'm going to take the radar down. Notice all the green. Pretty much every county is under some sort of flash flood warning, and you're still going to have more rain behind this. It's not going to be as heavy as this main batch, but likely pretty much every county, or most of them, are going to be under a flash flood warning when this is all said and done. There's also several aerial flood warnings for local streams and rivers. We can't mention all of them, but that is going to be the main trend heading off towards the east.
Yeah, so we're going to join programming already in progress, but if you want to continue to see our coverage, we are going to stay live streaming on our app, on Roku, on Amazon, on YouTube, Facebook, any device you have. Remember, you don't need to have a TV. If you've got one of these, it's a great place to stay in that shelter location and watch our stream. But we're going to return to our programming for our TV audience on air. That was another warning for another location, but you hear that, that's my computer going off. But we're going to return to our regularly scheduled programming on air. But if you want to watch continuing severe weather coverage, please join us online.
Now, and I'm glad that we did that. There's been several times, and I think that most of the times that you and I get together is the ones right around noon.
Yeah,
and
middle of the day.
It's the middle of the day because it's a perfect setup, because as you still get the daytime heating and strong winds, it's oftentimes watching well beforehand. You're going to be better warned than just waiting for the tornado warning. Oh, wait.
Waxhaw, the power line's down with sparking. That's not too far from where the tornado tracked. Wow.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, we jumped on air because we saw a rotation that was happening just southeast of Rock Hill. We followed it to around Marvin, and it moved up past the 485 loop. And what Brad was just showing was some sparking power lines in Waxhaw, and that's also where we're monitoring as well. Moved just west of Waxhaw, and then eventually we saw a cross over the 485 loop over Independence past Matthews, and coincidentally we're also seeing a lot of congestion right where we saw that path. So likely it was either straight line winds that were coming from this, but a tremendous amount of energy. And the amount of tornado warnings that we've seen in our area, that was our first one. This is likely maybe the second event. There's one that looked like it was pretty much almost a radar confirmed tornado that was in Catawba County. Sadly, one fatality did come from that. We're going to hear more from Lexi Wilson on our newscast starting at 4 o'clock on what exactly happened there. But we are likely going to be spending the next couple of days trying to survey the damage that came with this. And it's going to be tough to decipher if it came from the winds before, after, or along this line.
Yeah, and that's leading up to this. We talked a lot about this. You know, I said, well, the tornado risk, people are like, what about tornadoes? It doesn't really matter. Wind is wind. We say it all the time. There's so much wind energy in this. It would be hard to tell you whether this is a 70, 80 mile per hour straight line wind or a tornadic wind. The only difference is you see the way the debris lies, but it all causes damage. I mean, an 80, 70 mile per hour wind, let's say, it's going to damage a roof, a power line, a tree, just the same as a rotating 70, 80 mile per hour wind. So, you know, your structures don't care. Engineers don't care what direction is. In some cases, straight line winds can be more devastating because of the duration of the straight line winds.
Oh, absolutely.
Pushing, because it's not a short-lived burst of wind like we see with tornadoes. It's lasting for hours. And look at Union County, Chris. I mean, that is that wind is off the charts.
And oftentimes that you see this type of bright blue is when you're tracking hurricanes moving inland, because you see the bright differentiations between it, and we're nowhere near that wind force. But still, this is showing a pretty substantial wind. I don't think you're necessarily seeing 60 mile per hour winds per se from this. You have to factor in the radar angle and such, but certainly I think we've been popping up to 60 constantly. I think Charlotte's still at 56. Let's see what the max wind gusts are. I think we should have had a new update, or it will be coming in 4 minutes.
Let's see. It'll show us what the max winds have been today.
It's lagging. 56 still is what we have.
Still at 56, and that was with the line of storms that moved through the airport. That was when the ground stop occurred. You could imagine. Can you imagine trying to land in that? I mean, the only good news with the wind direction today, it's been down runway. It hasn't been a crosswind. I'll tell you just from experience, when there's crosswinds at the airport, you won't see anything take off or land. You can take off and land if the wind's right at or behind the aircraft. It's a little easy. It's not easy, but it's much more safer to do it that way. But when that line came through, it was just too dangerous. You could not have aircraft taking off. So that's going to cause a trickle-down effect because all those delays are just going to continue as we go through time. So again, the tornado watch has been whittled away from the west. So I just want to all clear you here. We don't want to say you're done with the wind and rain, but if you're, kind of west of I-77, kind of right in there, we're in the all clear from severe.
Yeah,
not all clear from wind and rain yet.
Yeah, my terrible drawing here. I'm so sorry.
It's good freehand there.
Yeah, no, but I would clear you pretty much in York and Chester County as well, just because you do have some heavy rain on the eastern side of your counties, right along I-77 still. But as far as that main front line, it's usually the leading edge that you have the kinks in the line, that you have the possibility. But as far as any tornado threat and the strongest peak winds, but realistically, and I'm going to bring this up again, the amount of winds that you could see a little bit later on is going to be substantial, where I think that you're going to calm things down to maybe gust to about 30, 35, and then I think you could ramp back up again as you have it right here. Look at this. This is around midnight. Our wind advisory for Charlotte still looks to end at 10 p.m. I think that you could have winds realistically, let me see, so 32, 43, 38 gusts, 43, even just saw a 50 that just popped up there, 3 a.m., still 43, 38, and then it's not until like mid to late morning that we get those gusts below 30 miles per hour. And then meanwhile, the mountains have expanded their wind advisories, high wind warnings, because still potential gusts over 55, even up to 60. And the reason why the mountains usually have a high wind warning compared to us with a wind advisory, it's because there's less friction. Oh, what happened?
Chris, you would be shocked. Remember the Bank of America reading? Yep. 62 mile per hour wind gusts at Bank of America.
Okay, that's the top so far.
Yeah, I was just, that caught me. And UNC Charlotte 48 and Concord Airport 44. So pretty impressive wind speed for Metro Charlotte. I mean, and the Bank of America, that's at the top of Bank of America. That's, think at the top of like the Bank of America building, or
trust me, I walked up those steps.
Yeah, Wells Fargo or the Truist building. Some of those, they probably had gusts over 70 at the top. So yeah, really just amazing to see that type of wind. The other thing is how well the forecast is verifying in this situation. Sometimes you see these wild numbers and you're like, is that actually going to be that strong? And sure enough, today things have kind of verified for the bad, because we were hoping maybe it wouldn't be as bad as we thought the days leading up to this, but it sure has been.
Things were trending down for a little bit for the severe potential, because what was interesting is there's the red shading that was pretty much down to the southeast for the worst of the weather. However, it's actually been the general thunderstorms, the 2% to the 5% threat for tornadoes that have been a little bit stronger. But I wanted to show you this loop. This is the last 12 hours. Do we forget that we actually have a winter weather advisory in the mountains to start off the day?
Yeah,
so literally, we're pretty much trying to do everything here. So today we went from a winter weather advisory to a wind advisory, a flood watch that turned over to be tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings with tornado tags, considerable severe thunderstorm warnings, and then of course the tornado watch that many of us are still under. And you can also see that over the last, it was most impressive when this line rolled through about that noon to 1 to 2, but now you're starting to see some breaks in the action. So it's nice to see this really start to accelerate. We're now starting to see this wind down, and truly some of our eastern zones aren't seen as magnificent of a profile as what we once saw. So let's go back to the velocity. Let's see how everything's looking wind-wise. Still a lot of yellows. Yellows representing, and the further north that you get away from this, it's a little less accurate, but that's still representing a very active wind environment. Wind gusts up to 40 to 50 miles per hour. And
yeah, Chris, we're going to jump off the stream for a second because we got to do an on-TV cut-in. So if you see us drop off, don't go away. We'll be right back. I'm going to do a quick update for our TV watching and listening audience, and Chris and I will be back online here. But I'm going to throw up a couple of things here for our on-air audience because we're kind of bouncing back and forth here between streaming and on-air. And that's
like behind the scenes.
Yeah,
you know?
So you're kind of seeing what we're doing in real time. I'm going to kind of set this up just to show people at home what's going on. Because some folks are, obviously, as Chris mentioned, a lot of folks didn't have school today or we didn't have work. Some folks, actually, some businesses closed down today. And I know there was a lot of, social media chat, like, why did that happen for this?
Now you see.
I think we've learned why, because this was not a day to be outside, especially in the middle of the day. Chris and I, you don't often see us together, but this is one of those rare events in the middle of the day where everybody's out and about.
I rarely see him with our different schedules, except for these wonderful moments. But Brad, we're about like 2.5 minutes away. I want to put on my traffic hat. We have crashes all over the place, but these are all ones that really just popped up once that initial line rolled through. So I'm visibly going to be reading some of these. There's a lane blockage on Ray Road and Old Providence Road. At one point, I-85 northbound was completely closed. That is opened back up around Cramerton and Lowell. We're also looking at another crash, delays due to fallen trees and power lines. That's Mallard Creek Road at W.T. Harris Boulevard. That was reported at 1:58, so nearly an hour ago. That led to one of the power outages that came from there. Also, we have lane blockages, trees down on Independence, very close to where we were tracking that potential tornado that crossed over Independence. And then also lane blockages on Sardis Road North. And I don't have enough time to go through all of them, so just please stay off the roads because there are so many ones that are blocked. Some are underwater, multiple trees down, debris, power outages galore, so please stay weather aware. Again, we're going to stay with you here online, but Brad's preparing for something actually on TV.
Yeah, so we're going to jump on TV here in about 90 seconds. As Chris mentioned, the big story has been the wind, the rain, and the severe storms. The severe storm risk is continuing to push east. We still got to get it out of our Sandhill counties, but eventually that will come to an end. But the wind and rain threat will linger for a while. The rain will move out next, and then the wind, that'll be the last thing to leave us. The wind is going to be with us for most of the overnight. It really does not calm down until early tomorrow morning, probably after sunrise, to be honest with you. There's the tornado watch. It'll slowly be whittled away. It's actually been extended off to the east. So for those of us, or those of you that are watching from outside of our viewing area, the Raleigh-Durham area, eastern North Carolina, Midlands, the Low Country, South Carolina, your tornado watch is going to be up for a little bit longer. It's going to go into tonight. In fact, let me look at when that expires. That one actually goes till 9 p.m. tonight. So our watch expires at 6. That's 3 hours longer. So we're going to step away for a second, jump on TV, but we will be right back with more streaming of this severe weather coverage here on WCNC. Good afternoon, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. A day to stay weather aware for good reason. Tornado watch continues till 6 p.m., but we'll likely see more counties whittled away as only the severe weather risk moves out. The winds are still howling. Look at the gusts, 56 at the airport, but at Bank of America Stadium, the wind gusted to 62 miles per hour as that line moved through. The winds are going to stay strong tonight, but the leading edge of the severe weather is just now east of Charlotte. So for all of you in Cabarrus County, Stanley, Rowan, Union, Lancaster, Chesterfield, Anson, and Richmond County, you've got several more hours of active severe weather, and then the rain and wind becomes an issue as the severe weather risk moves out. You see the severe thunderstorm warnings, most of these up until 4 o'clock. You need to treat all of these warnings, though, today like tornado warnings. We've seen quick spin up tornadoes, and even outside of tornadoes, we've seen 60 to 70 mile per hour winds within this line. You see the strong winds continuing to move into Union County. Some of these winds are around 60 miles per hour. Now the winds on the backside, they shift to the southwest and the west, but they'll stay up. We are seeing numerous power outages as trees and power lines come down across the area. So stay safe out there, stay off the roads. We'll have you covered right here on WCNC. If you want more coverage, go to WCNC.com or our app. We're continuing our severe weather coverage there as well as online. Stay weather aware today as we track these storms moving through the Carolinas. We're going to return to your program already in progress.
Still have enough train to keep the current Blue Line schedule with no disruptions.
NCDOT said, we don't know exactly why that's happening, and therefore we want you to take all of those trains out of service.
22 older light rail trains now out of service for maintenance. This after a defect to the face of the wheel called a flat spot was reported late last month. The car was repaired, but the same issue happened again.
While flat spots are not uncommon, it's not usual to see a new flat spot develop after just 5 days.
CAT's interim CEO, Brent Cagle, says rail maintenance found the wheel had excessive play. It was wobbly when it spun. NCDOT directed CATs to pull those trains from service and investigate the root of the problem.
Until we know exactly why there's some wobbling or excessive play in this one wheel, until we understand the reason why, we're going to pull all of the older ones out of service just to be sure, just to be safe.
In the meantime, Cagle says service will continue as scheduled. The agency still has 23 vehicles and says it only needs 20 for daily operations. CAT says they do not believe this issue is related to the wheel bearing problems that caused a derailment in 2022. City, county, and transportation leaders say safety is not an issue here.
From what I can tell, this is absolutely the highest level of care and concern and protection, given the warning signs that presented themselves that could be undertaken right now.
So this is operationally inconvenient for CATs, but if anything, the last thing you need to worry about is safety. We're very vigilant.
The Metropolitan Transportation Commission did request for NCDOT to come to its next meeting to answer any questions, make sure that they understand the concerns and steps being taken to fix the issue. It should take about 2 to 3 months for all the cars to be back in operation. In West Charlotte, Jesse Pierre, WCNC Charlotte.
Today, North and South Carolina workers are asking where's the money as their pay stays stagnant.
Yeah, that's right. More than 20 states are increasing their minimum wage this year, but the Carolinas are not. Instead, staying at the federal